Inside every museum is a hidden world. Now cameras are going behind the scenes at the Victoria and Albert Museum.
Wow, look at it, they're catching the light already.
Look at the company. Oh my goodness.
Home to more than 2 million wonders of art, design and performance.
Looks busting. He looks all right, doesn't he?
Oh, look at that. Bit of history. It's not something I was expecting to ever come across in my life as a conservator.
This year, many of us have had to stay away, but behind closed doors, the work must go on.
And now I'm giving his nostril a good clean, because that was particularly dirty.
Tommy Tittlemouse is the only bear in our collection that gets birthday cards in a post addressed to him.
Inside the stores, new discoveries are being made.
It's like a collector's mark here, right in the middle of the drawing.
Isn't it weird?
Fragile treasures are being restored.
The problem is that they have been in storage for about 150 years.
And masterpieces brought to light.
You can almost see fingerprints on his buttock.
Yes. Preserving the best of the old and the new for all of us.
We need to make sure that in 100 years' time, our grandchildren will also be able to enjoy them.
Every day, curators and conservators search the V&A's archives and collections to find objects with new stories to tell.
Objects reveal a lot about the past, a lot about the period they were made in, but also about the families or the people that owned them.
For the last 2 years, curator Lucia has been rifling through the V&A collections to find the best examples of handbags, cases and trunks.
We have around 2,000 bags around the museum. Virtually every department has at least one bag. So I've been thinking about bags more than I thought I would.
Lucia hopes to feature 300 in the museum's first exhibition devoted entirely to the ultimate accessory.
Bags have a dual nature. They're very private objects we use to carry our most personal belongings, but also they're very symbolic and they tell us who we are and who we aspire to be.
One special case Lucia really wants to display has just arrived on loan from a private collector.
Wow. Wow, look at that. Bit of history.
A red leather dispatch box that once belonged to Sir Winston Churchill.
They're really rare and I'm so excited. It's one of the things I really, really wanted to be here.
The most famous of these red boxes is the one held up by the Chancellor of the Exchequer on Budget Day.
I'm so thrilled. It's exciting for us because you can just close your eyes and imagine what this box represents.
Used by royalty and senior government figures since the 16th century to transport confidential documents, this particular box dates back 100 years.
It's actually a very odd box. As you can see, the handle and the lock are not together. They're opposite sides at the bottom.
That's not what you'd expect, is it?
It's actually like this so that you don't forget to lock it when you close it. So you can't actually go away without locking it. It's part of the security feature of such boxes. It's such a simple thing, but it's actually so clever.
But before it can join the exhibition, Conservator Jane needs to check that the case is robust enough to display for 10 months.
Right, here we go. Wow, wonderful. I'm slightly nervous, I think. Winston Churchill's Despatch box is quite an extraordinary piece to come through the studio. It's not something I was expecting to ever come across in my life as a conservator.
Sorry, I just noticed. Is this part of the inch? There's a lock.
I don't know, because I have never seen anything like that before on the side.
One of the surprising characteristics of this box is this metal element. I am quite intrigued to understand what was the purpose of it.
Around the hinges, with the flexing back and forwards with the opening and shutting, you have this typical damage. There's an area of darkening at the front and in the corners. Maybe someone has tried to do some repairs, maybe the leather was lifting, and that might have caused this darkening. I'm a little bit worried as to what that might have been, as to what I might do later with the treatment. You have to be very careful with all objects, but particularly ones in on loan and with such history behind them. It's quite a responsibility.
Churchill used this dispatch box 20 years before he became Prime Minister, during his brief but significant period as Secretary of State for the colonies.
Churchill was quite controversial at the times when he was Colonial Secretary. I'm sure everybody would like to know exactly which documents were in there.
During the Cairo Conference of 1921, Churchill helped to redraw the borders of the modern Middle East. The decisions taken then remain controversial today.
I'm going to be very cautious how I approach this.
Jane's priority is to ensure this historic box doesn't deteriorate while on display. First, she needs to secure any loose leather.
I'm going to consolidate some small areas of leather with a 2% solution of Plus-G in isopropyl alcohol. Plus-G is a modified cellulose ether that can penetrate into the leather to try and hold the fibres together.
Jane hopes the gel will bind the loose leather fragments. But signs of previous damage make her extra cautious, so she does a small test first.
We can't just go in, big brush and just slap it on. We have to be incredibly delicate because otherwise it could look absolutely dreadful. Check what's happening there. I think there's very slight discoloration, so I'm loath to go on using this particular consolidant.
The leather has reacted to the gel and could become stained with more treatment. If the box is to be ready for the exhibition's opening, Jane will have to come up with another plan.
I do have nightmares about things I'm working on. I can have sleepless nights. You just lie there thinking, oh my God, did I make the right decision?
The V&A's Museum of Childhood in East London is one of the world's biggest toy boxes, containing around 30,000 toys and games. It's recently shut its doors, whilst it's transformed into an exciting new museum of design and creativity for kids. But before the builders can start, the entire collection needs to be moved into storage.
There's no possibility of telling the builders that they can't come in at that time, just because we haven't finished packing. So we are very much under pressure to get out of the building.
The collection includes over 100 dolls' houses, and the team's biggest removal challenge is this one.
The Nuremberg house, it's one of the oldest ones in the UK. It's certainly the oldest one in our collection, and it's very special for those reasons. Also, it's absolutely beautiful. The contents of the house are exquisite, and it's just so charming. It's just a fantastic little world.
Some of the very first dolls' houses were made in the German town of Nuremberg, which was known from the 16th century as the Toy City. It was home to all kinds of skilled craftsmen, including toy makers, who specialised in miniature versions of everyday objects.
The doll's house today is understood as being very much a child's plaything, but in its original history, they were actually commissioned by wealthy adults, often men, who wanted to have a miniature model, essentially, of their house.
This house was made in 1673. No one knows who the original owner was, but there are clues.
We know that it was commissioned by the family of an apothecary, which we'd know now as a chemist or a pharmacist, because the sign of an apothecary in the 17th century was a unicorn, and there is a unicorn's head affixed to the wall over here. We know this family was a religious family and a Protestant family because opposite the unicorn is a print of Martin Luther.
Commissioning a doll's house was a way of displaying your wealth.
All the ladies are dressed in fine dresses, and large candlesticks to signify being able to afford that much silver.
But dolls' houses from this period weren't all about showing off.
They were used as educational tools. We have to remember at this time, many, many young women hadn't been taught to read, so it was a really good visual way of demonstrating how to manage a household. We have our best kitchen on the left, which would have been for receiving guests, and then we have the more practical working kitchen on the right, where all the cooking would have taken place, where the animals would have lived.
Moving this 350-year-old house and all its contents is an enormous task.
Lots of potential for it to be damaged, as well as the materials used in its construction. So the wood, the textiles, the paper can tend to attract pests, as well as ultimately becoming more and more fragile as they age.
Kay is the conservator overseeing the move.
I'm currently about to move house myself, but I have to admit I've spent more time thinking about moving the doll's house than I have myself. There's a lot of loose components. It's quite a responsibility to make sure it gets safely decanted and moved.
So the 3 storage baskets there apparently have got salt in them, 17th century salt.
Really?
So, apparently.
Ah, is it loose in there?
I've never opened them. So this is looking to be a pretty huge task. How long do you think it's going to take?
Optimistically, maybe a week, I would say.
Okay.
There's an awful lot to fit into a very short space of time. The pressure is on.
Every year, the V&A receives hundreds of requests for its objects to be loaned out to other museums.
The V&A has always been about sharing its artworks with the country and the world. Of the national collections, we are one of the biggest lenders.
So it's those middle two, Alistair.
There is one artist whose works are always in demand.
Not a year goes by without several requests for our constable works, and they're extremely popular all over the world.
John Constable revolutionised British landscape painting in the early 19th century. The V&A has the biggest collection in the world, with 400 works ranging from large oil paintings to smaller sketches.
We'll have to decide which of these two goes top and bottom.
The Tylers Museum in the Netherlands has asked for 14 constables, including one masterpiece that is very rarely lent out.
Dedham Lock and Mill is on display in our British galleries, but it hasn't been on loan for many decades. So this is a bit of a special occasion for it. It's very characteristic of Constable's work in that it shows the landscape that he grew up in, that he loved very much, and it depicts one of his father's mills where he worked as a child.
The canvas hasn't been examined thoroughly for many years, so conservator Nicola needs to make sure it's safe to travel.
This painting is 200 years old now and is one of the greatest treasures of the V&A. I must check to make sure that it's stable. It went on a loan in 1995, so it had surface cleaning before that. But the last time it had a sort of major treatment was in 1957. I've asked for it to come to the studio so that I can check it out of the frame.
We won't let our objects travel if they're at risk. So it's very important that all the work that needs to happen to them before they leave the building is done in good time.
Well done.
Loan requests give the conservators a rare opportunity to examine the paintings close up.
I think I've uncovered all the screws now. Start taking them out. We've had experiences recently where the edges did start to have a problem. The place where it's most likely to fail is on the front edge, where it's stretched around the stretcher. It's possible that you find that there's been some deterioration that's hidden by the frame.
But if there is an issue, Nicola will have to solve it quickly. The museum has only just reopened after lockdown, so the team is under extra pressure.
Usually it takes us several months to prepare objects to go out on loan, but this time we have to do it in several weeks, which is quite a big ask. It's going to be up to the wire, I think.
Lucia's Bags exhibition is just weeks from opening. While searching the theatre and performance collection, she discovered an altogether different red case. Not owned by a politician, but by Hollywood royalty.
While I was doing the research in our collection, I came across this writing case belonged to Vivien Leigh.
I find that quite exciting. I was a great fan of hers when I was a child. I thought she was so beautiful.
Oh, she was actually. She was one of the most beautiful women.
A legend of both stage and screen, Vivien Leigh's iconic performance in A Streetcar Named Desire won her a second Oscar, 12 years after her first one, for Gone with the Wind.
Marry me, bitch.
The case was made around 1955 and is covered in a red leather.
The writing case contained everything Vivien Leigh needed to keep up with her correspondence whilst on the move.
It's just so compact, but when you open it up, of course, it's so...
Everything's there. When I was younger, a lot of my friends had these, so I'm quite familiar with them. That would have been a calendar, and that's where the stamps would have gone.
We had selected 3 address books to put in the exhibition, the New York, London and Paris address books.
I love the idea of one address book being for New York, one for London and one for Paris. I mean, most of us would just have it all in one address book. Obviously, condition checking them, I was able to have a little look at some of the addresses in there.
Yeah.
I have peeked through the address books, which of course you have to when you're assessing them because you need to go through to make sure there are no tears to the pages or anything missing.
John Crawford, yeah.
Olivia de Havilland in here. But it was a lovely opportunity to see whose addresses were in there. You know, it's being a bit nosy really, but it's all part of the job.
Lucia is keen to display examples of Vivien Leigh's correspondence alongside the case.
We just had to go and look into the archive and see what was suitable for the date, late 40s to the mid-60s.
I love spending time in archives. It's that kind of almost investigating job. That's what I love the most.
The V&A acquired Vivien Leigh's voluminous archive from her grandchildren in 2013.
It's a really vast archive of around 10,000 individual items, around 7,500 letters, telegrams and cards, about 2,000 photographs. So it's an extraordinarily rich archive.
The letters read like a who's who of mid-20th century showbiz.
One is from Betty Davis. They clearly had a good time. She says, "I was so stimulated by the evening, I had to take a sleeping pill."
Vivien Leigh also kept hundreds of telegrams sent by her husband and on-screen lover, Laurence Olivier.
"I know how soon you leave, and wherefore, darling pussycat, thinking of you with dearest devotion, Larry Olivier."
Aw.
Yes, some are quite intimate.
Yeah.
You're sort of reading things probably that weren't really meant to be seen by anyone.
But she kept it all together, right? Yes.
She kept everything together, yes.
Keith has also discovered a surprising link between the writing case and another object in the Baggs exhibition.
So in the archive, we have this correspondence that took place between Vivien Leigh and Winston Churchill. Quite unlikely partnership, but they were really good friends.
And that's amazing because, you know, in the exhibition, amongst the many objects we have this 2 red boxes, and one is Vivien Leigh attaché case, and we also have Winston Churchill Despatch box. They're going to be displayed next to each other, so it's rather interesting that they were friends.
That's a lovely connection. Vivien Leigh made a film with Laurence Olivier called Lady Hamilton. It became Churchill's favourite film.
Also known as That Hamilton Woman, the classic film is set against a backdrop of the Napoleonic Wars and was released in 1941.
Various biographies have suggested that he had seen the film over 100 times. Churchill saw all kinds of parallels when we consider that in 1941, most of Europe had surrendered. He adored this film. He thought it was extremely patriotic. He showed it to his cabinet. He even sent a copy to Joseph Stalin. The film was really used as a tool to help secure the support of allies outside of Europe.
But it was not only her films they bonded over.
Both were amateur painters. Vivien Leigh was taken for a tour of his studio, and she admired one of his paintings of some roses, which he gifted to her. She had it framed and put up in her bedroom.
What does this letter say?
So it's June 1951. They've obviously spent the evening together.
I so much enjoy seeing you and your husband the other week, and it was, for me, the most agreeable evening. Very proper, very formal, but still you can see it's a bit of warmth there.
Yeah.
It's an amazing document to see. I'm so glad that we're going to display them next to each other. Those were 2 independent objects that we wanted to display in the exhibition, but finding out they were friends is actually a really fascinating aspect of these 2 different personalities.
The 2 old friends will be reunited in the exhibition, but only if Churchill's dispatch box is stable enough to be displayed. There are always new stories to discover about the museum's collections.
It's hugely exciting and a great privilege and joy of my job when you look through an archive and you can discover some of the hidden secrets.
It's also a chance for curators to find out more about an object's life before the V&A. Curator Simon is searching for a new star for the museum's Wall of Fame, honouring important stage productions of the past.
Every few years, we have to rotate the posters and re-display a whole new set. We have thousands and thousands of posters. It's a very difficult challenge to select. It's like being a child in the biggest sweet shop in the world and being told that you can only choose 5 sweets. Wow.
Simon already has a shortlist for his latest display.
One of the companies we really want to ensure that we have up there is Tallower, a pioneer in Black British theatre.
What can you say to draw a third more opulent than your sisters speak?
Nothing, my lord.
Nothing.
The Tallower Theatre Company was founded in 1986.
Nothing will come of nothing. Speak again.
Unhappy that I am, I cannot heave my heart into my mouth.
The theatre company's name is Jamaican, meaning gutsy and strong, and they specialise in producing works celebrating Black British voices.
When I started to leaf through the posters, the Smile Orange poster absolutely jumps out of you. It's so bright, it's so cheerful.
To find out more about the poster before it goes on display, Simon has invited Yvonne Brewster, one of Tallowa's founders.
One of the real joys of the job of a curator is bringing history alive. But sometimes we have bits missing, and who better to fill in the gaps than somebody that was there? Oh. Hello, Yvonne, how are you?
Hi. Fine, thank you.
Yvonne produced this version of Smile Orange in 1992.
What a way to describe it, a juicy, fruity Jamaican farce.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to do it, do it. I remember in those days, it was quite a little while ago, that was really pushing it a bit, using words like that on the street, on posters. Good Lord.
Born in Jamaica, Yvonne came to Britain in the 1950s to go to drama school, where she was the first female black student.
They didn't say, how are you, what's your name, I hope you'll have a good time with us. You'll say, well, we will take the money, but you do know you'll never work. So I was crestfallen. Right, said I, pulling myself up to my 5'2" height. We'll see.
Yvonne went on to starring roles across TV, film and theatre. She was awarded an OBE for services to the arts in 1993. Whilst at Tallowa, she directed and produced dozens of plays, including Smile Orange, written by Jamaican playwright Trevor Rohn in the 1970s.
Imagine that you're the guest and I am the waiter and you're having your soup.
What a soup is, sir?
Imagine, man!
Smile Orange is a farce, but we might also think of it as a satire about the Jamaican tourism industry at the time. It makes parallels between the historic slave trade and the notion that the white Western populations are exploiting people from other cultures.
People were fighting to get in to see Smile Orange because they recognized the people, they recognized the characters, they recognized the situation, they recognized the politics. Underneath it all, the belly of Smile Orange is the fact that tourism is the worst thing that could happen to a small Caribbean island. Because what happens, everybody sells out.
Yvonne first directed the play in the UK in 1972.
Here is the programme for that 1972 production. I mean, it's a lot of venues.
We started in Acton, I remember that, and then it built. So the last thing was in Anson Hall. That's when the theatre burned down.
Oh.
You didn't know that story?
No.
It was so popular, people were queuing up outside. But Saturday night, the theatre burned down.
Gosh.
That brought me to a very great halt. Oh, Jesus.
Oh, Yvonne, I don't mean to upset you.
No, I'm not upset. You need to be tough if you're trying to break through barriers.
Being with Yvonne has absolutely convinced me that the Smile Orange poster is the one to go into the display, and I can't wait to see Yvonne's reaction to the poster up on the wall.
In paintings conservation, Constable's Dedham Lock and Mill has been taken out of its frame for the first time in almost 20 years.
A great deal of my work is preparing paintings for loan, examining them in the studio and doing small repairs to make sure that they can travel safely. It is a big responsibility to work on these paintings, and it is also a privilege. I'll use the torch to cast a raking light that sort of catches any unevenness, and then you can easily see if paint is lifting. All of the artworks will decay. They are degrading slowly. With age and movement of the canvas, tiny cracks appear through the ground and the paint. And these can develop into all sorts of different patterns depending on partly painting technique. What we're trying to do is slow that process down as much as we can. I've checked over the surface and the adhesion is good everywhere. There's nowhere where I can see that an edge of the paint is curling away from the canvas or lifting. There is one thing I've noticed, a little scuff in the varnish. It's a small aesthetic problem.
Nicola is hoping that after applying a fine line of varnish, the scratch on the surface will no longer be visible.
All of those treatments carry some risk, and so the less you have to do it, the better. You're aware of the potential for damage, but you try and work with the process to try and make sure that risks are avoided.
While the varnish dries, Nicola gets a moment to appreciate Constable's craft up close.
You do see so many more details. The brushwork, getting a real sparkle off some of the foliage and several little birds sort of swooping over the water. In the background, these cows that are hardly more than a sort of flick of the brush, and then another little sort of flick of white.
Nicola also needs to check the canvas itself.
I want to double check that the edges of the canvas are sound and aren't starting to tear.
The wooden frame the canvas is fixed to can become acidic over time, damaging the fabric.
The most significant edge to check is this upper edge, because that's the part that's constantly in contact with the wooden stretcher. But this is in good condition. It still looks robust, not at all brittle.
The canvas itself is sound, but Nicola is concerned about the case in which the painting will travel to the Netherlands.
I'm not really satisfied with these fixings. The fixings seem rather small to me. They're only just gripping the edge of the painting. It would be preferable to have a fillet running the whole length.
But improving them will add time to an already tight schedule.
The way paintings are fitted in their frame contributes a lot to their preservation. I want to get it right, make sure that it's as secure and as safe as it can be for the next 20 years.
In the Museum of Childhood, the team must begin packing up an entire 17th century house in miniature.
The house and its contents haven't been moved for a long time, so there is a risk that we'll discover something that we don't want to see when we begin to assess its condition. They're so densely displayed, it can be hard to see problems that an object like this might have.
You ready? Yeah, let's go.
Taking on the challenge are collection move officers Francis and Max. They need to tick off every item on the inventory. All 300 of them.
I'm just so amazed at how tiny the things are and how delicate.
I have to take pictures first.
The photos will help curators put all the furniture back in the right place when the museum reopens in 2 years' time.
Oh, and there's something in the attic.
Let me take a look. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Yeah, there is a metal lid on it. Oh, that's interesting. Probably we need to take it out to avoid abrasion during transportation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the end we'll check on if there's anything missing.
Yes.
Well, no, it's in the attic.
That might be the magic attic that the children are hiding the best of the dollhouse.
The object will remain a mystery until all 300 items in the house have been checked against the museum's database.
I have to be very meticulous to do this job, for sure. If I mark it wrongly now, every single record in the future will be messed up. And I don't want my name to be recorded in this way.
There's a wooden pot here.
They start by emptying one room at a time.
Okay, I'm gonna grab the pillows, I think.
Does it feel like wool inside?
Yeah. Spaces for bugs to crawl into.
Yes.
The most worrying things to me is finding some live pests in the bedding. The stuffing inside are made of wool, and they're very, very tasty to morph.
Frances will need the woolen pillows to be checked by the conservator, as finding any insects could derail the whole move.
Imagine there is a moth inside hiding, and then we transport it to South Kent and other warehouse. When they grow and come up and eat the rest of the organic materials in the warehouse, that would be a problematic problem, right?
They're amazing.
Is it canvas painting?
I think it's printed onto paper and then they may have gone over it with some watercolours. It's very fragile, it's just one sheet of paper.
Yes. I just take extra care and treat it as something more precious than diamond, I would say.
Prints and books were prized objects in the 17th century. This doll's house boasts no fewer than 3 tiny devotional works.
Those are so tiny. And I don't read German, sorry. Concerning the size of it, it's really amazing. It's really like a real book.
Pretty amazing that someone would have actually read this.
Yeah. Their bindings are relatively weak. You can see the binding is like peeling off. Maybe Kay will do some treatments to stabilize the book and the binding before we pack it. So.
The doll's house move is scheduled for 4 days' time.
What is he holding?
And they are still only halfway through.
It just fits out.
Takes longer to move this dollhouse than moving my own house.
We have a good start, right?
Yeah, still a lot to do. Big project, but it's a little dent in it. It's satisfying to see an empty room eventually.
In the conservation studio, Jane is going into battle with Churchill's fragile dispatch box to ensure it doesn't deteriorate while on display.
Now I'm going to sift the paste and hope that if I use dry enough paste that it won't actually discolour in any way from behind.
Jane is using wheat starch paste to stick down loose material that could otherwise get snagged.
There's an area left in there. I need to be very careful, I don't want to lose it.
She starts with the cloth covering the bottom of the box.
I'm just going to literally paste down the very edges of the threads so that there's no more fraying and they can't be ripped back if they're caught. Quite difficult to get the warp and weft threads in the right direction sometimes. I'm trying to be careful that I don't have too much adhesive on my brush because I don't want to cause any stains. I'm also taking care that I don't catch anything so that I could cause a rip or knock the leather and scuff it further. These are the things I have to be careful of when I'm working. I think I probably almost got it to the stage where threads are sort of stable. We're not here to make things look as they did originally. We're here just to stabilise them, to halt any further deterioration.
The area most in need of attention is around the hinge.
This is going to be lost if I don't do something about it soon, so I'm hoping just to get behind here, slip a piece of Japanese paper to support, and then adhere it back.
Japanese paper's long fibres make it tough and flexible.
I want to have a more browny red, because what I'm trying to do is get something that is toned between the sort of flesh layer of the leather and the burgundy of the grain layer. I think I'm just going to do a rough outline by sight. It's always tricky. So once this is... I feel a little bit like a magician or a surgeon when you can actually piece it all together again and make it a working object. And that's so satisfying, it really is. Even the smallest fragment that's coming off can be saved.
With Jane's deadline looming, the pressure is on to get the box finished in time for the exhibition.
But hopefully that will dry and be fine.
Tallowa's Smile Orange poster is getting ready for its encore. It's about to take centre stage in the revamped poster display in the Theatre and Performance Gallery.
It's always a real joy to see a blank wall suddenly alive again with all these performances of the past.
Simon's invited Yvonne along for a sneak preview.
Oh my goodness. Look at the company. Henry Irving. Oh. Bent.
It was really moving seeing Yvonne's reaction to the Smile Orange poster. It's a very small example of the whole wealth of history in the Tallowa Theatre Company archive, and of course a very small aspect of Yvonne's career, but it created such a big impact.
This is lovely, Simon. Congratulations.
Well, thank you for coming to the archive, telling us some more about it, and it's a great honour to put that on the wall and to share Tallowa's history.
Yes, but you know what's nice is that there are things that blend in, and it doesn't look like it's put there for political reasons. It's put there because that's where it might be, and that's lovely. I sincerely hope some of the people who came to the Cochrane Theatre to see Smile Orange and laughed and understood it will come here and look at the poster in all its glory and see what it was trying to do and what it hopefully, now with this poster in this grand place, has succeeded in doing.
With the installation of the bags exhibition about to begin, Lucia still has one final important detail to find out before she puts Sir Winston Churchill's dispatch box on display. It was made by London leather manufacturer John Peck & Son, who produced cases from the 1870s up until they closed their doors in the 1930s.
Boxes of these types were made in many different workshops around London in the past, but nowadays it's only one company that still makes these boxes and follow traditional method.
Barrow, Hepburn and Gale, founded in 1760, are now the only suppliers of the dispatch boxes that are used by both the Queen and government ministers today.
Good morning. How are you?
Mohammed Suleiman is one of the company's directors.
Inside information from one of the makers of these boxes is actually invaluable.
In terms of features, they have more or less stayed the same ever since dispatch boxes have been used. So we have a craft-based business that keeps a lot of very specialist craftsmen working. All the leather is done by a family of tanners that we've used for generations.
I wanted to show you something. This feature here, we were wondering if that's part of the security.
These are position pins. They position the lid on the base, prevent someone from prizing it open. However, it has another function which even ministers of today don't know. It is a glorified hole punch. Imagine Winston Churchill. He's dealing with his papers. He's lit his cigar, and that's the last thing he wants to do, and he's reading them quickly. That's important. That's not so important. So he groups them accordingly, punches it, sticks the Treasury tag through it.
That's amazing.
So it's a glorified hole punch. So
it's something that we don't use as much anymore, hole puncher.
we don't, but you'd be surprised how much paper moves around Whitehall. So you get an insight into how government really works.
It's really surprising to discover it's a hole punch as well, so it's a different aspect of the functionality of this box. I already loved this box before, but now even more so, having talked through with you, and I'm really grateful for all this insight.
Now, Lucia must display both boxes so they look their best.
The installation period is really intense because there's so many little details to think about. The Winston Churchill Despatch box and the Vivian Lee writing case, they are one of the most complex part of the exhibition, so it will be a lot of work to get everything right.
The team packing up the 14 Constable paintings are also under pressure to make sure the priceless works leave the museum on time.
It's been a bit last minute.
I know. It's all because of the pandemic. This is one of the few loans that stick to the original dates, even with the pandemic.
The other works are crated up to go to the Netherlands, but Dedham Lock and Mill still isn't ready.
Obviously, when it's moving around the country and overseas, there's a lot of movement and vibration, and we don't want that to cause more problems for the painting. So it's important that this is resolved now before it leaves the building.
For curator Anna, the loan of this painting is a chance for the V&A to help tell the world the story of Constable.
We welcome any opportunity to make him known to the wider public, especially outside Great Britain, because he himself was so open to artistic dialogue with continental artists.
John Constable's style was influenced by his studies of these old masters.
The art of Poussin, the art of Claude Lorrain shaped Constable vision. And we know, for instance, that one of the rooms in his house was covered from ceiling to floor with framed prints from artists of the past. These visions of these artists fueled his ability to translate graphically his own countryside.
Finally, Dedham Lock and Mill is ready for its journey.
So the packing's like a Russian doll, layer after layer to protect it. Every time you think we've finished, another layer goes on. It makes you realise how many people it takes to put together a loan like this, and because of the pandemic, we didn't have some of those people. We've had to pull that together in a really short amount of time. Bit of a roller coaster, but it's a really good feeling that it is now leaving.
Ruth is hoping that the current situation could lead to a renewed interest in Constable.
During lockdown, I, like everybody else, was looking at nature in a different way. So maybe we will have a lot more interest in works by painters such as Constable who focused on nature, and maybe we'll get lots of new loan requests for exhibitions exploring this theme.
In the Museum of Childhood, all the contents have now been removed from the 350-year-old doll's house. But Frances still has one item unaccounted for.
When I'm auditing the kitchen, the jar on the table, there is a lid missing. When I look around on the floor or every single corner of the room, there is no loose lid floating around.
Frances hopes the small item in the attic could be the lost lid.
Ah, if that is the lid, that would be perfect, and then there is no record missing.
I'd
don't think the roof comes off, so we're going to have to get it out through the largest opening. It's going to be quite a challenge trying to extract through the attic windows.
I'll do the second one.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And luckily, my arms are thin enough to get through that little window.
Take your time.
When I put my arms in, I can't see anything. Searching in the dark, I am afraid of like maybe knocking something else, which might destroy the whole dollhouse. Yeah, touch it. Yeah.
Expertly done.
Yeah. And then...
There it is. You found your missing part.
Yes. Shall we take a look?
It's the moment of truth.
No.
No.
Far too big.
And the colour is different.
Francis was quite excited. We were hoping it was the missing piece of the puzzle, but that wasn't the case, unfortunately.
But never mind, we have a new partner for the dollhouse.
The search continues.
Yes, exactly.
They'll need to make a record of the missing lid, just in case it turns up elsewhere in the museum.
I have some issues here for you.
Next, when inspecting the pillows, there's one visitor they're hoping not to find.
I'd be quite glad to know whether there are any signs of pest activity. They can do quite a lot of damage to historic textiles. I think we've seen absolutely no signs of any pest activity. I think we're absolutely okay with these.
They're now ready to move the house itself, once they've secured the fixtures and fittings.
The bell doesn't detach.
Okay, we'll need to come up with a packing solution
Yeah.
for that so it doesn't ring all the way to South Kensington. You got it?
Yeah. Okay. Do you mind putting it down at the front, just so I can...
Getting it from the case into the crate, it's always a bit of a heart-stopping moment, especially when things are of a certain age and don't necessarily like being moved very much.
Fingers out.
It can be a little bit frightening sometimes.
I'm happy it got out in one piece, and I'll be super happy when it arrives at South Kensington. Ready?
Yeah.
I now have to move house myself. Hopefully it'll go slightly quicker and it'll be slightly more disorganized, I think.
More?
Mind this? Stop, stop. Let's take it out.
It's quite a moment to reach, I think, because this is one of our most important dolls' houses, one of our oldest ones and one of our most fragile, so it's quite a momentous occasion just to see it moving out the building for what might be the first time in a century.
There are so many elements that are very interesting to see, and I want to make sure that they're all visible. Yeah.
Today, Lucia and her colleague Manuela are about to add the 2 red boxes to the forthcoming bags exhibition.
We've been working hard to get to this point, the objects are now finally all here. So it starts to be very real. Let's put it in and then we see, okay?
Yeah. Okay, so here. Then we need to open it.
Okay, is it stable now?
I think it's flush with the...
Is it? So it's fine, right?
You're happy with this?
Yeah, for now.
Okay.
I just want them to see them together.
This is her last chance to get everything just so.
Yeah, it doesn't look great. You see what Vivian Lee has written. I don't want it to stress the strap there, so it needs to come a bit down. Yeah, try now. Okay, it's much better. I'm really precise about where the object is going to go. It's a bit more towards me, kind of almost in dialogue with the Churchill box.
So there is a lot of time spent moving the object.
Sometimes there's even adjustment of a few millimeters. Wait, can you just move it towards the right a bit?
Everything.
No, just New York.
Having worked on the exhibition for over 2 years, it's not easy for Lucia to let go.
Just want to make sure that the pace and all the objects are, because this is the last chance, right? Do you think it's straight, the diary?
The moment you close the case is the moment that you've stopped, you've finished doing all this tweaking, and you can't touch it anymore.
You see the powder puff there? It needs a bit of fluffing, if you could.
It's the moment where you're saying, okay, this is perfect, I'm happy with it. It's exciting, also a bit scary.
Yeah. So I think it's the time, Lucia. I'm gonna stay here all night otherwise. There you go. Let's do this. Great. Woo.
The dispatch box and writing case have now finally taken their place alongside 300 other trunks, cases, and handbags.
Every single object is now well lit on their mount and looking their best.
That's fantastic.
After 2.5 years working on this, seeing the object finally coming together.
It really feels amazing.
Wow, this is the one I like. One of the great pleasures of working on an exhibition is actually feeling part of it. My little books. And having the satisfaction of enjoying the final installation as much as the curators, technicians, and everybody who's been involved in it. Sometimes you don't know what the story is that's being told with your object until you see it in the case, and then you understand the narrative.
For me, it's incredible to see the objects after so many months and years.
There they are, finally out on display. It's wonderful to see them there.
Together. It's just amazing.
Next time, a mysterious Thai painting presents conservators with a puzzle.
It wasn't what I was expecting. Have to have a rethink.
Curators race against time to create a groundbreaking exhibition.
I think we'll look back at this one of the most significant artworks of the 21st century.
And a show-stopping costume ruffles some feathers.
It's really squashing this amazing skirt. That is a real prob.
To find out what it's like to be a museum curator and have a go at curating the V&A's collection yourself, go to bbc.co.uk/secrets of the museum and follow the links to the Open University.